Pichai from Mumbai. So she will tell us about arborescent, non-arborescent nodes and links. Please start.
Yes. Thanks for this invitation. I feel this whole week I've been in Japan virtually, so feels nice. At least the mind is in Japan. So hopefully after this pandemic is over, I'll get a chance to visit. Thanks for the invitation. Let me try to kind of take you on a tour where we have explored each and every, how to compute, to give some kind of a knot, which I actually drew a board, a simple knot, which is a knot with one twist, self twist, which is called the framing number one. So you need to give a quantitative way of distinguishing those objects. That is what is the main theme, and that will solve some of the mathematical problems, which is classifications of knots is still an open problem. Okay, so this is where we have developed a lot of methods by various collaborations, and I'll present one subset of it today. And these are works which I've done with Satoshi, Zodin, Vivek. Vivek and Shashwati are my students. Zodin, Vivek, and Shashwati, and Satoshi was my collaborator. And then with the Russian team of Mironov, Morozov, Sleptov, and Bechler, we seem to have also looked into more and more writing down the explicit colored home-fly PT polynomials. Okay. So this data is really useful for uh, finding all this BPS invariance, repromulated invariance. The starting point is these colored home-fly PT polynomials. So we have updated, we keep updating it on our website. This is not ebook, and of course we should thank our Indo-Russian funding, without which this would have not have been possible. Also, recently, in the last 1 year, we were looking at a class of hyperbolic knots which are very close cousins of the torus knots. They are called the weaving knots, and we also did a hybrid version of it. And this has appeared in the archive, and it's going to be published in JHET. It got accepted in JHET. So I will highlight most of these aspects of our recent works and how and what we have been able to achieve and what is still left. Okay. Okay, so I'll give a brief introduction, then I'll also try and explain the computation of what is arborescent knots, and that's the distinguishing fact which I did not know about 7-8 years ago, that there is a subtle difference between arborescent and non-arborescent knots, which I'll highlight pictorially, and then we will do the computation methods of getting colored home-fly PT polynomials for arborescent knots. And one of the crucial problem in knot theory is, if you take a small region and rotate it by 180 degrees, small region which is a two tangle and rotate it by 180 degrees, that operation can give you a different knot after doing that operation. But unfortunately, many of these well-known knot theory polynomials don't detect them. This is one of the important problems. This mutation problem is something which needs a lot of focus, and I've been trying from 95, and every time there is some other example where it doesn't work. I think now we have a method, but still it needs improvisation. Okay. So I'll try and explain this mutation detection, and then I take up a class of non-arborescent knots where this methodology of arborescent knots is not really applicable, how we compute the colored home fly, but we need to address those knots as well if you have to look at classification problem. So we need to see how can we deal with computation which is not cumbersome and it can give us the polynomial results. So there are various methods, highest weight method, eigenvalue hypothesis. These were some of the methods we learned by collaborating with the Russians. And then we did a mix and match of the tools of arborescent and the tools of non-arborescent. We could combine them and look at some of the knots in a hybrid approach. Okay, so this helps us to get in an elegant way the polynomial for many of the other knots. Otherwise, the computation, sometimes it's difficult to compute. So these are the tools which helps us to actually tackle writing a polynomial form for many knots. Okay, so this is I'll highlight those steps here in the rest of the talk. And then I will conclude with summary and open problems. I'll have a present work and so on. Okay, so to give you a glimpse pictorially, I have tried to draw some of the knots as if you have fingers. This is the way we call it, the various fingers. Each fingers, there is a boundary, which is a 4 punctured boundary. You give me a knot, we can try to redraw it involving not only 4 fingers, but it can have many fingers. But we could redraw many knots in this fashion. This is what is called as the arborescent knot. So to be very clear, arborescent knots or links is redrawn as 4 punctured S2 boundaries, gluing 4 punctured S2 boundaries. So in the middle, this S2 boundary has, there are 4 S2 boundaries on this 3 ball. You can have 5, 6 and so on. But every S2 boundary will have only 4 punctures. So the initial feeling was that you give me any knot, I can draw it this way. This what is the feeling. But later on, we learned that Conway had actually said that there are a class of knots which cannot be redrawn as gluing of fingers. Okay, I hope I have clarified. I've shown you a picture here. But in general, there are other knots which cannot belong to this class, but you can still draw it as a closure of a braid. So here I have put in more than 3 punctures on this S2 boundary. There are actually 6 punctures. And I have a braid word. And then I do the closure. Unfortunately, this 818 knot, I cannot draw it this way. Okay. So that is why this knot is a non-arborescent knot. I hope this is clear. The interesting on the arborescent knots is we can also use shorthand notations, trying to replace each of these fingers like a kind of a line, drawing like a Feynman diagram. So the 4 boundary S2 can be like a quartic vertex. And then these numbers which I write are the number of crossings which I'm putting in the fingers. Bar means anti-parallel crossings. The 2 strands are anti-parallel. Minus means left-handed crossing. You can use a very nice shorthand. Instead of drawing the diagram, arborescent knots, we could use this. So this is what is the shorthand notation of 3 bar, 3 bar, minus 3 bar, minus 3 bar. And that's a pretzel, anti-parallel pretzel, because the bar is for the 2 strands being anti-parallel. Okay. The strands which are braided are anti-parallel in orientation. Okay. So now let me confine to the arborescent knots. As I said that each S2 boundary will have only 4 punctures. And we need to do the computations of those knot invariants or link invariants. So we need to use the Witten's prescription of Chern-Simons path integral on a 3 ball with S2 boundary can be associated with a state given in the Vesumino conformal field theory. And because this has S2 boundary has 4 punctures, The states in that Hilbert space, the basis states are the conformal block basis, 4-point conformal block basis. And we formally write the 4-point conformal blocks because the corresponding Mesomino theories, let's assume it is SU2 or SU3 or SUN. So let's take it to be SUN. There are some more subtleties we have introduced with more finesse after we looked at mutant detection. We put in the small subscript R, R4, R3. They are like the multiplicity indices. Okay, this doesn't come into picture if you're doing SU2 representations. But if I'm doing SUN representations, to take a mixed representation of SUN, the tensor product of R1 and R2 can give you a particular irrep T more than once. Okay. The conformal block, the dimension of the conformal block will also depend on that multiplicity. So that's why the states, the basis states should have those multiplicity index also. So this is one crucial point which is very, very important in doing the computation, especially in the context of mutants, okay, mutant knots. I'll come to it, but just keep in mind. So there is another channel. Instead of a T channel, you can also look at the S channel where, instead of combining R1 and R2, you could combine the middle two strands in the punctures. There are 4 punctures. You can combine the side 2 strands or the middle 2 strands. And these 2 bases are equivalent bases. By equivalent bases, I mean you can find a duality matrix which can relate these 2 bases. Okay. So let me just get on to a particular example to have some clarity. Take this famous figure 8 knot. Figure 8 knot, I've drawn it as a quasi-plat. I've not really drawn it as a closure diagram here. Closure means you have to identify the first strand in the initial point with the first strand and the second in the final point. Okay, after you draw the braid. Here it's not closure. It's capping. This is what we call it as a quasi-plat diagram. So this diagram, I can break it up into 2-3 balls with 4 punctured S2 boundaries. And I can use the tools of this conformal block basis to compute the states on these 2 boundaries. Involves braiding in the middle strand as well as in the side strands. You can see that. Okay, so you need to go between the 2 bases by using the duality matrix. Okay. So these invariants will involve braiding eigenvalues as well as duality matrix, and it's very simple to write down that expression. Let me not get into it, but you can write it down. More generalization, as I said, fingers. There can be K fingers, and you can connect them with a K vertex kind of a diagram here, and we can work out using the same tools. No difference. So these are called the Arboreson knots. And this methodology essentially tells me that all knot invariants can be written in terms of the braiding eigenvalues and the duality matrices. Okay, so this is the theme of Arboreson knots. Like I've shown you some examples here. 10152, I've drawn it as 3 finger diagrams. Then I have 1071, where I have again drawn it as a 3 finger diagrams showing explicitly the 3 boundary 3 ball. So all this helps us to do the braiding, change bases from the side strands to the middle strands by duality matrix, and then identify those boundaries, oppositely oriented boundaries, to get back a inner product, which will give you a number. And that number is what we call it as a knot invariant. Okay, So essentially, I did not really get into telling you what is the state for these building blocks. So you need to write a 3-boundary state for this building block because they appear in some of these examples. Not only this, but you can have a generalization to multi S2 boundaries also. Okay. So with this multiplicity incorporated, we have made some modification on those states. And I'm giving you some pictorial representation. Suppose you have 2 boundaries with this kind of a braid. It's nicer to redraw it by inserting a 3-boundary 3-ball along with other braids, so that the computation becomes as if you're doing the computation on the middle toe strands. Okay. And so on. So they're more complicated. So this is what I call it as a building block. So we have this table with various states happening in any arbitrary node or link. We first redraw it using these building blocks. And once we have this, for each of these building blocks, we know the states. We just take the inner product and write down the node. And I also said about the shorthand notation that any of these fingers which I have, I could use these integers which keeps track of side strands, or on the 2 side strands or in the middle strands, and minus and bar refers to anti-parallel, left-handed, and it kind of rhythms with Feynman tree diagrams. Okay, like for example, if I have this kind of a diagram, you can read like it is like a property. So what we wanted to achieve was, we wanted to write one universal result. Universal result dependent on various parameters. The parameters, I've said the shorthand notation. The parameters are such that it keeps track of the number of crossings as N1, M1, N2, M2. If I put them to be 0 and I look at some specific case, I'll get figure 8. One universal invariant as a function of parameters, we wanted to write a knot invariant using these tools. That would have been ideal. Like you give me a knot and I redraw it as this Arbison knot, find these parameters, and then I can tell you what is the polynomial because I have a universal invariant. So we were able to get the best fit. We were not able to achieve all the knots. Of course, up to 10 crossing, there is a huge number. And this number I can say is measure 0. But most of the knots up to 10 crossings, we have been able to put it as a universal invariant. So anyone who wants to work out that invariant have to fit in those numbers, those parameters, and you'll get the answer. So this was one of the works with the Russian team and my student Vivek in 2016. So then what I've shown you that all these invariants can be written in grading eigenvalues and duality matrix. But what I've not said is, in all the literature, you see it as a polynomial in variable 1 or 2 variables. That is where the stumbling block is. The stumbling block is nobody knows the matrix elements of these duality matrices for arbitrary representation. So arbitrary representation duality matrices, which relates the S and T channel, these matrix elements is not available other than for SU2. SU2 Kirlov-Reshtkin has a beautiful form, a closed form. It's not available for SUN for arbitrary representations. Arbitrary representations means I can put these representations, mixed representations, symmetric, anti-symmetric. This is not available. Because this is not available, we cannot write, even though I wrote the universal invariant, we cannot write the polynomial form. To write the polynomial form, we need to know these duality matrices. And if you go beyond arborescent, it is, the 4 strands have the same representations or conjugate representations for knots. But then in the context of non-arborescent, because it will have more than 4 punctures, the conformal blocks can have intermediate states. So it's in principle, even though the 2 strands will be the same representation, they combine to give you some mixed representations, and then it gets more complicated. Those duality matrices are also not more. Okay, so this is the issue which makes one to see whether we can capture or find a closed form expression for these duality matrices, and at least get the polynomial form for most of the arborescent knots, and also tackle non-arborescent knots. Okay. So as I said, SU2 is well known. So it's completely, you can get the polynomial form for any arbitrary knot. Even the duality matrices for arborescent and duality matrices for non-arborescent is available. There is a neat closed form expression given by Kirillov-Reshetkin. So you can write a complete solution for SU2 knot invariance for any arbitrary knot. Okay. What we did with Satoshi and Zodin was for a class of representations, symmetric representations or antisymmetric, totally symmetric or totally antisymmetric. We conjectured a similar closed form like the way it looks for Kirillov-Reshetkin with some modification. So now we can claim at least the colored Homefly PT for SUN symmetric or antisymmetric. Any arborescent knot is computable. Polynomial form is computable. Okay. The next task is to go beyond symmetric and antisymmetric. And whoever has seen Zhu and Joker's paper, you would have observed even for this simplest mixed representation, it's a tedious job to find the duality matrices. They've shown the methodology and they've obtained the duality matrix elements for 2, 1. So after this work, there are other works by the Russian groups. They have done it for these rectangular representations. So once you have these rectangular representations, it's easier to write the polynomial for this. So what is the sum total of what I've been saying now is that any arbitrary representation, it's still an open problem to write a Kirillov-Reshetkin type form for the duality matrix. Okay, so this is the situation. Yeah, so now let me try and explain in simple pictorial form what is mutation. So as I said, you take a 2 tangle inside, there will be various crossings. There will be 2 ingoing and 2 outgoing strands. Just look at that region of a knot. You can either rotate it about x-axis by 180 degrees or y-axis by 180 degrees. Of course, since these knots are drawn as a projection on a 2-dimensional plane, the z-axis rotation can be composed using the x and y. So there are only 2 independent rotations. So this is what is shown here. If you have a tangle, 2 tangle, then by x-axis, you get a new 2 tangle. Or if you do a wide rotation by 180 degrees on a 2 tangle, you get a different new tangle. So mutation, unfortunately, this mutation is an operation. Okay. So the mutation operation on these states, we could write the mutation operation on the state, which is just a 180-degree rotation. And what we show is if you use symmetric representations of SUN, this mutation operation is an identity operation. It's like an identity operator. So what does that mean? That if I glue this piece with some other piece, or if I glue this piece with some other piece, it's just an identity of the identity transformation only. I don't get anything new. So clearly, mutation is not detected by symmetric colors. So we are not composed of this two-tangle F with something else, or this rotated two-tangle with the same other piece which you connected to this F, you will get the same answer. The not invariant will be same. So I've given you only a formal proof that what has been explicitly seen in Jones polynomial, Kaufman polynomial, Home-Fly PT, that they find that if you have a knot, the famous knot is this Kinoshita, Terasaka, and Conway, which are mutant knots. Those two have the same Home-Fly PT. Those two have the same Kaufman and Jones. And I've just given you a proof that that operation is an identity operation, so you will not be able to see the difference. So what does that tell me? You need to go beyond symmetric representation to see whether the mutation can be a non-trivial operation. Mathematically, I know mutation is a non-trivial operation when I do it physically on a two-tangle, but I have to see mathematically something which gives me a non-trivial mutation. Mutation should not be an identity operator. And for that, you need to go beyond symmetric representation. And as I've already told you, beyond symmetric, we have not much information on the duality matrices for arbitrary mixed representations. Okay. So what we did is we tried to use the 2,1, that is the mixed representation duality matrices done by Dew and Jokers, to write explicitly the colored Home-Fly PT for this representation, for this famous new mutant pair, which is the Kinoshita, Terasaka, and Conway mutant. So this was the work where we explicitly did the calculation. Of course, it was mentioned, or it was shown the difference to be shown for specific SUN colors in Morton et al., Morton and collaborator papers. We explicitly used our tools where I said any not invariant I can write in terms of grading eigenvalues and duality matrices. And since duality matrices was available, we could explicitly work it out as a two-variable colored Home-Fly PT for this two uncolored, and show that they are actually, these two not polynomials are actually distinct. This is the work with Satoshi and Vivek. So what is the crucial information which helped in making this mutation operation not to be an identity operation? The crucial information is the tensor product of such a mixed representation allows for a particular irrep to occur twice. Okay. So because these two irreps occurs twice, which I've shown it in red, I call that subscript with the small r subscript as either 0 or 1. Okay, so the 3 to 1 representation occurs twice, and we introduce one more index, which is the multiplicity index. And this is the one which plays a crucial role in distinguishing the mutation operation to be not an identity operation. So I'm just pictorially showing again the same 4-point conformal block which I was discussing. And This mutation operation can be mimicked by introducing this braid word. If you do this braid word, you can topologically do a rotation. You can see the rotation about this axis, x-axis, to give you this. This is equivalent to this. And because I know the state and I can write the state, so that is what I've done. There is a B1 inverse and B1 between anti-parallel strands and B2 between anti-parallel strands, but one is an inverse and the other one is a braiding, because you can see that this is undercrossing and this is overcrossing. So you can do this to write the states for the mutant angle by doing this braiding operation, and this braiding operation depends on the multiplicity index. If this multiplicity index was not there, it will be an identity operation. Because of this multiplicity index, we see that this phase makes sure that the operator is not an identity operator. So similarly for the other mutant about y-axis, we'll have a non-trivial braid word, which is also shown here. And you can do this operation and show that it is not an identity operator, provided it has non-trivial multiplicity index. At least some representation should have non-trivial multiplicity index. Okay, so the parentheses are just plus or minus one phases, and that is the one which plays a crucial. Okay, so this is what I've said. When there is a multiplicity index, and it will get into this computation to show that this is not same as the initial state. Okay, it's not an identity operator. So formally, any state can be rewritten in terms of the basis states, incorporating the multiplicity index and the mutant partner of it by some other amplitudes. And these amplitudes are up to a sign, which is what I said. The phases are just plus or minus one sign. So you can, this argument which we did for a specific example can also be done formally for any arbitrary two-tangle. That is what we are trying to say here. And we get up to a sign. And this helps us to show that this difference, because there is one representation with multiplicity, we can show that this difference is non-zero. If it was symmetric, this difference would have been zero. Once we have it to be the difference being non-zero, we just have to glue with this two-tangle and you get the difference between, this is a knot, this is one knot, and then this is a mutant partner because I've done a rotation in the bottom two-tangle. Okay, so the difference between a knot and its mutant partner turns out to be a product of these coefficients. If this coefficient turns out to be zero, then we are stuck. If there is a non-trivial coefficient, then this difference is actually capturing the mutation operation and shows that mutation is not an identity operation. And this happens only for states where the tensor product of representations gives you irreps with multiplicity. And that first 2,1 representation has helped us to check this. Okay. So this is what we have tried to redraw the F and G tangle. Okay. So I will not get into, so this F tangle, you can redraw it this way. These are equivalent. And then once you have redrawn it this way, you can do the mutation operation and do the computation, find the G, find the F, and so on. So this is just a matter of following the rules which we have already proposed in computing those coefficients. Okay, so there are other Levin crossing mutants. So that was to focus on Kinoshita Conway, and there are 16 pairs of mutant knots at Levin crossing. Till 10 crossing, there is no mutant knots. That's one other thing that we don't face a mutant there. So once we get into the 11 crossing, we start seeing mutant pairs. And there are some nice features we see when we take the difference between the colored home fly between the mutant pairs. We see a compact way of rewriting using the coefficients where decays are defined in terms of the quantum numbers. Okay, so the definition of parenthesis and all I've given here, and what is D I've explained it. So this is one of the interesting things to tell, that we can also find a universal feature for 2-1 mutant pairs where it can be compactly written in this fashion. This procedure, unfortunately, at least for the 2-1 color, here in this fingers, the mutant operation can also be, you can exchange fingers. Mutation operation for the arborescent node or link which I've drawn here, exchanging any two consecutive fingers will give you a mutant partner. That's also 180-degree rotation. And the shorthand notation for writing this, as I said, the bar is for the anti-parallel crossings. So you have two fingers with three crossings between anti-parallel strands, and -3 means left-handed crossings. -3 bar and -3. So these mutants, unfortunately, the coefficients turns out to be 0. Okay. So what does this tell us? That 2,1 representation cannot detect these class of mutant pairs, or I cannot do the mutation detection for anti-parallel pretzel mutants. So we still need to find ways, and then Morton has said that you should look for representations whose tensor product gives you irreducible representation, not only twice, it should be more than twice. The lowest representations where you start getting that kind of representation is 4,2. This is a Young diagram representation where 4 boxes in the first row and 2 boxes in the second row. If you take tensor product of this, some of the irreducible representation occurs thrice. And this seems to be involved in helping us to detect mutant pairs which are for the pretzel knots. Okay. So what we try to do is the computation becomes difficult. 2-1 itself, the duality matrix elements, the computation of finding the duality matrix elements is cumbersome. Some work has happened for 3,1, 4,1 and so on. But to do this, you still have to figure out a way of writing the duality matrix for this. But what we tried is to use the quantum groups R matrix, universal R matrix, for specific ranks. Take SU3, SL3, SL4, UQ, SL4 R matrices. Work out for this representation and try to distinguish the difference between the pretzel link or pretzel knot and its mutant partner, where you exchange fingers. So you exchange the 3 bar and the 3. In the third finger and the fourth finger we exchange. So this was the mutant partner of this, and we could find the differences between these pretzels. Okay, so this was the work which appeared last year, 2020, with Bischler, Mironov, and other collaborators, where we have explicitly shown that indeed this representation for a specific rank can distinguish anti-parallel pretzel mutants. Okay, so far was a story for arborescent knots. For complete story, complete classification, we need to have information on the non-arborescent knots as well, because you can't neglect that. One of the key features is you don't have a 4 punctured S2 boundaries. You need to find alternate methods. So this beyond 4 punctured S2 boundaries, the computation duality matrices are not known. Methods are also very tedious. So many times we're not able to handle the polynomial form for even an 8 crossing knot, which is 818, which is non-Arbor. So the recent works, we have looked at a class of knots which can be obtained by closure of a 4-strand braid, which will give you an 8 punctured boundary. This is the work with Shashwati Dara, who was my student, Vivek, and other Russian, Mirnov, Morozov, Sleptov. So what we did is the simplest symmetric representations. I'm just trying to convince you that how tedious it is. The two color, two box, which is a symmetric rank 2 representation of SUN, we managed to write the non-Arborescent invariants obtained from 4-strand braids. We're not able to go beyond 4-strand. Okay. One of the interesting features which came as an output from doing this systematic calculation was that the duality matrix, if you put on the strands symmetric representations, the duality matrix turns out to be identifiable with an SL2 duality matrix. And as I said, the SL2 duality matrix, Kirillov-Reshtikin has given a closed form. So we could use that and compute the polynomial form for these cases. Okay. So these are the situations where 4-strand braid we could do only up to 2 color, but for 3-strand braid with symmetric colors, because from the hypothesis we could relate the duality matrix to the SL2 duality matrix, we could write the polynomial form for 3-strand braids with different symmetric representation. Yeah, so this enables us to write full links from 3 strands having different symmetric colors. Just to show you pictorially a 3-strand braid, you can have crossings between the first and second and third. So the shorthand notation -1, -1, -1, -1 means that first you can call this as A1, then B1, A2 and B2. And here all the A1, B1, A2, B2 are all same. So that's why it is. You can rewrite compactly using this R matrix method in computing these invariants. So let me just tell you some of the inputs here. These R matrices, braid word, the braiding relations, if you do, this is what led to the duality matrix. If you do a braiding on the side 2 strands, or if you do it on the second and the third strand, those two are not going to give you simultaneous, they cannot be simultaneously diagonalizable. That's why you have a unitary matrix or a duality matrix relating those two bases. So the braiding between the second and the third strand, which is this R matrix R2, should be unitarily related to the braiding eigenvalues, which is chosen to be diagonal, and you need to unitarily relate it. This is one of the crucial inputs which is to be used and compute the polynomial, and for specifically for a lowest fundamental representation, this elaboration is done here. And the same procedure which is done for 3 strands can be done for 4 strands. But clearly when you go to 4 strands, you will have more than one unitary matrix. This is one unitary matrix which is relating the second and the third strand, but then you have third and the fourth, you will have more unitary matrices. Okay, so using this tool, we got interested recently to look at a class of hyperbolic knots. Okay. There are a lot of developments on hyperbolic knots. Hyperbolic knots have a non-trivial volume, and we wanted to see whether colored home-fly PT can be written for this class of weaving knots, which are called the hyperbolic, which belong to the hyperbolic knots class. And the tools which I said for the non-arborescent knots for a 3-strand braid is actually useful here. See, you see that sigma 1 to the power of m and sigma 2 to the power of m. If you put m equal to 1, it is sigma 1, sigma 2 inverse. If you put m equal to 2, you start seeing this. Formally, I put in different m's here. So m equal to 1 is nothing but the figure 8. And if you take n equal to 1, okay, n equal to 2. If you take sigma 1, sigma 2 inverse, sigma 1, sigma 2 inverse, you will get back your figure 8. Sigma 1, if we did not put the inverse, it will be like the torus knots. Torus knots are sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 1, sigma 2, keep doing that. So if you do sigma 1, sigma 2 twice, you will get the trefoil. The modification is that then the braiding generators alternate with inverses. That is the modification in the context of weaving knots. Pertinent to this 3-strand case, it is sigma 1, sigma 2 inverse. Okay, so this is the class of knots we wanted to address just for clarity. So the hybrid weaving knots with m put as 1 and n arbitrary, they are called the weaving knots. And if you put m to be arbitrary, n to be 1, we get the connected sums of the torus knots and its mirror of those torus knots. And if you take this m to be 3 and n to be 2, it turns out to be a dual crossing knot of this type. Okay. All of them, this is definitely a hyperbolic knot which has non-trivial volume. What we wanted to find is the colored home-fly PT for a general hybrid weaving knot, so that we can address some of the issues about volume conjectures for these class of weavings. Okay, so this was a recent work which appeared in March. So since this is a kind of a number theory conference also, I thought I should highlight a couple of interesting features which we found. In fact, Vivek has been one of the authors here, my former PhD student, has neatly been able to combine things and get a closed form expression. And some of the results are related to, we could show that these neat combinations are neatly tied with the Fibonacci numbers. Okay. So it's something which looks exciting, and we could get a closed form expression for home fly, which is for the fundamental representation, and by using the tools which I have already enumerated, we could do it for 2-color, 3-color for these hybrid weavings. There are other knots. How much time do I have? You should kind of warn me if I'm overshooting the time. Sorry, it's still time, right?
Yeah, about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay, so there are these highest weight methods, which is also, I'm just trying to give you a feel of the coproduct way of looking at this, co-multiplication way of looking at, to obtain the unitary matrices which relates R1, R2, and for the 4-strand braid, I said we need another set of unitary matrices, and there is a systematic procedure of raising operators to do for the 4-strand braids. Okay. So this is something which is known for the 3-strand, and we tried to continue for the 4-strand. For only the 2-color, okay, 2 means symmetric rank 2. We've not been able to do for arbitrary color. Even though this methodology is straightforward, it becomes cumbersome. So non-arborescent for closure of a 4-strand braid becomes really difficult. Okay, so some of these eigenvalue hypotheses mix and match with highest weight methods actually helped us to tackle arborescent knots. Okay. So these are some of the postulates, and these are familiar Yang-Baxter equation or the braiding relations, which we are all familiar with. And Buko actually mentioned, I think, he has used it. He had written a review article on integrability and Yang-Baxter equations. So you could see that using these simple tools and working governed by these eigenvalues of these R matrices and the relations which related by unitary matrices U, V, we could try and get the form for R2, then the form for R3, and explicitly work out the two color. But it has not been done beyond two color. Okay. So this is what I'm saying. Like, we need higher strand rates, and we need to explore whether this methodology can be neatly and compactly done. So this is still an open question. So non-arborescent knots beyond closure of, even for closure of a 4-strand braid beyond to symmetric, we still have problems. We're not able to write the invariants, polynomial form of the invariants. So all non-arborescent knots up to 10 crossings are calculated for representation 2 after validating U and V by both the eigenvalue hypothesis and highest weight methods. But beyond this is like, we still are battling to find the polynomial. The hybrid approach helps us to use the tools of non-arborescent and arborescent. See, if you see here, we are trying to use like fingers connecting them. So some pieces can be worked out using our arborescent tools, the tools for the arborescent knot computation. And some methods of this closure of a 3-strand braids can be used for the non-arborescent piece of computation. So we could mix and match some of them, and some of these knots, 934, 939, with these parameters choices, we could actually work out the polynomial. Okay. So these are some of the interesting, elegant way of getting the polynomial form when we are stuck. Suppose I draw it as a non-arborescent knot, I'm not able to do it. But if I use the tools of these two hybrid methods, both the methods in a hybrid fashion, we could actually capture the colored Humphrey beat. Okay. So some are indicated here for an example, but it's a very straightforward exercise. So let me summarize what is achieved or what is achievable, and what are things which needs to be still an open problem, what is to be done. R-colored Humphrey PT, now with our closed form expression for duality matrices, if you can draw any number of crossing, if you can draw an arborescent knots, if it is an arborescent knot, you can calculate for any symmetric color or any antisymmetric color the explicit polynomial form. Okay. So that's the first good achievement from all these exercises. Colored Humphrey PT obtained from 3-strand braid, up to mixed representations up to 4 boxes has been done. It's available now. We are able to get the polynomial form for mixed representations up to 4 boxes. Of course, rectangular representations are also done. 2-colored Humphrey PT for all arborescent knots obtained from 4-strand braids are achieved. R-colored Humphrey PT of non-arborescent knots Though highest weight method is straightforward, we still are having the stumbling block of making the computation less tedious. It's not happened. And all our results are time to time updated in the naughtybook.org website as a, you can pull out the data of the polynomial and they can be used to check integrality checks in the topological string context, Oguri-Wafa conjectures. We can check many of these with the invariants which we have obtained for both Arbour-Simpson and non-Arbour-Simpsons. Okay, so these are some of the current problems which we were working on in the last 1 year in the spirit of looking at the topological entanglement papers which Balasubramaniam, Vijay Balasubramaniam, especially the link invariants play a crucial role. Okay. So to look at topological entanglement between link complements, the manifolds are link complements with multiple S2 boundaries or multiple T2 boundaries, and you start partial tracing some of those T2 boundaries and look at the reduced density matrix. Once you have this reduced density matrix, then we can start looking at entanglement entropy, Renyi entropy. So those are the multiple torus boundaries of link complements. A lot of works in that. We have also done some works earlier. Recently, the exciting part which we find is that the large K is the Chern-Simons coupling. If you take the M moment of the reduced density matrix, for a connected sum of a knot, take a prime knot with Hopf link. For this case, we are able to capture the hyperbolic volume of knot complement. So this paper is going to appear soon. It's almost, I was hoping to finish this before this talk to show some details of the paper. There's some finishing touches left, unfortunately. Hopefully, we'll put it up on the archive early next week. And this is the work with Aditya Dwivedi, Bhavani Mandal, Siddharth Dwivedi, Vivek Kumar Singh, and it should appear soon. You can watch out for it. The other things which we are trying in the spirit of Piotr on this MMR method of quiver correspondence and writing from the Alexander polynomial, try to extract the R-colored Homfly PT, even the symmetric colored, we need to get a closed form expression for these weaving knots. And then we could tackle some of the works on quiver correspondence. So I hope we will get some concise form, a closed form for weaving knots using Q-Pochemers and Q-binomials. The work is in progress. And essentially, once we do this, there will be a lot of useful input to tackle volume conjecture, knot quiver correspondence. As I said, these weaving knots are hyperbolic knots. So these are some of the open problems which the last two are the open problems which we are trying to fix it. And hopefully in the next meeting, if normal situation happens, I would get to visit physically and try and present some of these results. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the session is open for questions.
So I have a question, which is
Yeah.
So you have the case when the color is R, etc. Is there a case when the color is the color is like a young tab row with the two rows or two, two rows, I guess. And then for arbitrary lengths, which are lengths R1, R2, or something like that. So lengths R1, R2, and Has it been computed? I mean, I was once interested in.
For symmetric has been computed. R1 and R2 being different.
Yes.
It's possible. The closed form expression which we have is useful for R1, R2 also.
Okay, but I mean not completely symmetric, but partly anti-symmetrized. So with the Young tableau with the depth 2, not 1.
Okay, so let me try and write. You're saying something like this one?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah, this has been computed up to 4 boxes. It's available.
There is no asymptotic formula when you have R1, R2, and both goes to infinity with the ratio fixed, or?
I don't know whether the asymptotics are known, but this is the generalization of Ju Joker 3, 1 and R, 1. Okay. R is 3 here, but you could do it for 3, 1, 4, 1, but I don't think we have a closed form expression to even address your asymptotic question.
I see. Yeah, I mean, that would be useful when we want to discuss the volume conjecture, for example. So.
Why are you worried about this representation for the volume conjecture?
Well, let's see. I mean, there's a general question of if you go to SLN, etc., there are different colors, and they can play around with different colors. And I mean, to define the volume conjecture, there are various different. When you take the limit, you take the representation to infinity as well. But
I agree.
So there are parameters, and then there is some. I mean, I have some natural proposals to what the Chern-Simons interpretation is, but when I looked a couple of years ago, there was no explicit formula, so I couldn't check anything. So,
so explicit formula right now we have it for symmetric colors, but such a closed form I don't think is available for mixed colors.
I see. Okay, thank you.
No other questions? Yeah, I have one. So what makes the symmetric representation different from arbitrary representations? So you said for symmetric you have an explicit computation, but other representations are difficult.
Symmetric case, there is no multiplicity. Right? Whenever you take a representation, every error which I'm going to write here, right? Every irrep will occur only once.
I see.
I think that makes the step to rhythm like the Rushtikin-Torev, Kirillov-Rushtikin's paper.
Mm-hmm.
So we are able to tackle, of course, with Kirillov-Rushtikin, we need to have some non-trivial coefficients added, but that was validated with Wisnot polynomials. But we are not able to do that even for SU3, it's still, I think we have been struggling to write even this duality matrix is related to Wigner 6J. But Wigner 3J, even for SL3, quantum Wigner 3J is still an open question. We have almost got a result and hopefully we'll get the 3J. But 6J is still unclear how to go about for an arbitrary representation. One of the crucial points is probably that this multiplicity plays a very important role.
Okay. Thank you. So, any other questions, comments? Okay, if not, let's thank the speaker again.
Thank you. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
So we meet 5:30 again.
Yep.
Okay.
Put a stop share now.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Can I try sharing my screen just to
Yes.
make sure it works?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Let me stop recording.